Donald Trump. He's only halfway through 2 of 4, so he still has a rendezvous with Fannie Willis and Jack Smith. And we don't know whether the sheer outrageousness of the prosecutors, and they're not doing very well in court, but they're in blue cities with blue judges and blue juries and blue prosecutors. So we don't know what will be the ultimate effect. Right now, we do know that it is helping Donald Trump and people are outraged at this miscarriage of justice, but we don't know if he should be jailed, taken off the campaign trail, psychologically, physically exhausted, subject to gag orders or even jailing. What will be the effect on the swing voters? Will they say, oh my God, this is terrible what they're doing to him, I'm going to vote for Biden? Or it's terrible what they're doing to him, but my God, he's the president. I can't vote for a president in jail. We've never done that before. So that's a known unknown. We just don't know what the reaction is going to be by November.
It's stating, I suppose, the bleeding obvious, but the rest of the world looks on and thinks, how on earth did America come to this? The thing people say to me all the time is, how ever did a country of America's standing and prestige and what have you, 300 million people, come to this point? A variation on this that I hadn't thought of until I was talking to Dave Rubin a little while ago was that of the, we see the splits, the city versus city, the East Coast versus and West Coast versus the inland, those with degrees, those who don't have degrees, those sorts of splits. And then you see the political split. But there's another one I'd be interested in your views on that Dave Rubin referred to. It's that you have blue states and red states, my words, not his, almost becoming principalities in their own right. So California is becoming, it's an enormous economy even today. A lot of people, it's bigger than a lot of European countries, but it's completely and absolutely different to a Florida.
Yes.
And it seems to be another sort of massive set of fault lines in America. You're almost seeing the emergence of principalities. In a way, that's, I suppose, gives the American people choice, but does it take you further down the road to the smashing of American identity?
Yeah, I think we here in this country pride ourselves in the federal system where we have these semi-autonomous states that can develop their own culture and traditions, laws, customs, and we feel that that's sort of a safety valve, that when the federal government gets oppressive or tries to be too uniform, a state can reestablish its secular traditional identity. But we don't realize that there's been times in American history where the sheer semi-autonomous nature of states and the freedom to travel and to move have given a self-selecting or force multiplying effect to national differences. We saw that in the 1850s. It wasn't so much moving as there was a group of southern states, 11 of them, on the issue of slavery led to the Civil War. What we're seeing now is about 4 to 6 million people moving, and almost 90% of them are moving in one direction from a blue state, Illinois, New York, California, Minnesota, Michigan, to a red state. And it's massive. And the red states have an entirely different code of laws as they pertain to abortion, guns. They have cultural differences on religion, on the traditions of the United States, military service, et cetera, et cetera. And there's an adjudicator, there's a third party reality, and that is the red states are not insolvent. They are working. They do not have a problem with big city prosecutors. Their campuses, for the most part, are quiet. The city councils in red cities, the mayors and the governors of red states will not tolerate what we're seeing at Stanford University, where I work, or Princeton, or Yale, or Columbia, or Chicago, all of these big blue cities where our blue chip universities are. So this is an accelerant of a kind of a strange and maybe even dangerous trend that the country is bifurcating. You could make the argument that Tennessee feels closer to Florida, to Arizona, to Texas than they do much closer than Illinois or California, but what I'm getting at is maybe more close and with more affinity with each other than they do the United States, and vice versa with the blue states.
Yeah.
And it's something has geopolitical ramifications if that were to be true. It's a very delicate thing, John. When you have Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you have Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, and out of the blue in 2021, they say there's a vast white supremacist clique in the aftermath of George Floyd that they're going to root out. And this is sort of a clinger, deplorable, irredeemable, supposed subset. And you implement DEI, which is a non-meritocratic methodology of retention, promotion, advancement in the military. And then you tell the same demographic of white males from the rural and South, lower middle class, that even if you've had COVID 2 or 3 times, you're going to be out of the military if you don't vaccinate. Well, 8,500 of them, of our best, left. And then we're short 45,000 soldiers. It's never happened before. And if you look at the demographics of the enlistment, they're not Hispanics who are enlisting at the same numbers. Blacks are, gays, women, etc. They're almost entirely, the shortfalls are off on the very demographic that died at twice the numbers in the general population in Iraq and Afghanistan, where 75% roughly of all the deaths were lower class, middle class, suburban class, white males, inordinately from red states. And they only represent, white males in general, about 33% of the population, yet they died. And yet that's the very demographic that the Army went after. And now all of a sudden, with the Afghanistan humiliation and Gaza, Ukraine, the Chinese balloon, the military is in full panic. So gone are the commercials of pregnant women in flight suits and George Floyd motifs for recruitment, and suddenly it's a bunch of guys that look like they're World War II vets jumping out of helicopters or storming the beaches, and the commercial says, "Be all you can be, defend your country," and this is a direct appeal to that lost constituency that they alienated. So, John, all of these differences that we have in culture and politics and economics and their view of America, red versus blue, are starting to manifest themselves in this election year. And they're not compatible. And some of them are existential when you start to deal with a military that, as I said, Ukraine, Afghanistan humiliation, the Gaza war, China threatening Taiwan. And then you look at the military and you see that it's not really equipped to replenish its massive airlifts to Israel and Ukraine. But more importantly, it's short of the very type of soldiers who volunteer to go fight in god-awful places like Kandahar or Fallujah or Mosul. And we're not getting those soldiers. And so the question arises, what's going to happen? And we're also borrowing every 100 days, we're borrowing $1 trillion under the Biden administration. So we're very worried here about a lot of things they're going to come to an apex during this election.